Welcome everyone. Okay, we're going to be putting this caravan, camper, however you want to call it, together now. So I've cut all my pieces. I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure this is going to work. I did a mock-up of this to see that it would work. It didn't quite work, so I had to make some changes. Fairly certain everything's going to work, but we'll soon find out. So once you've cut all your pieces, I think the first thing you really want to do is cut little bits of velum, whatever you want to use, tissue paper, I don't know, you could possibly use that as well, to go on the back of the windows and also on the door of the caravan. I haven't cut these on the Cricut, I've just cut them by hand with scissors. It's slightly bigger than they need to be, if you can see that there. And all we're going to do is put some glue around the edge, just enough to make sure it's properly covered. You don't want the vellum to wrinkle. And we'll just sit that on there, and I just take the edge of a ruler and just sort of press it down. And you'll see the glue underneath it as you press down. Make sure that's properly pressed. Perfect. So that's all the vellum on. We're then going to add the window frames to the front. Obviously, if you're cutting on double-sided decorative cardstock like I have done, you can use either side, but I'm going to go with the colourful side on the outside just because you can. So I'll just glue this. Now you'll notice I'm using a scotch glue stick on a piece of paper towel, which I find picks up some of the excess glue over the edges and you don't get any overspill. There's a little tip of the day. And again, I'm just going to take my ruler and just press that down. Make sure it's properly stuck. I do sit this under a book, just let it dry for a wee minute. Make sure it's properly dry before I start folding everything. That's that one done there. I'll just stick that on. I've already done the other pieces just so you don't have to sit and watch me doing everything. Oh, that one's moved slightly, I'll just move that. The Scotch glue sticks, they are permanent. But they do take a wee minute to dry properly, which allows you to then move it if you need to. But once it's dry proper. So I'm going to sit this under a book, which you can't see, I realise, but you don't need to see me doing that. Okay, and then we can move on to sort of what else we need to do. If you wish, I've done it with this one, I've already started, you can ink the edges. I'm just going to go quickly and ink the edges. And this will be the top piece. I'm actually using purple ink for this, but I don't want too much, just enough to kind of hide the white of the card, so the core of the card. And however you want to do this, whether you use an ink pad or a brush or whatever you want to use. But the important thing for me here was to sort of hide the white of the card, so I don't want too much ink, just enough. And I figured the purple would be quite good because there's purple in the colours of the card. And the good thing with this, you can use any colour you want, whether you want to use the same colour for the whole thing or different colours for different panels, entirely up to you. The only thing I will say, the main panel, I just cut from brown craft card for the simple reason is that this bit gets hidden. So you don't see this once it's put together. So this is just the sort of part of the main structure. So I'm going to start by folding this. And one tip, if I can give you a tip, I tend to find I prefer the folds on the inside. So I cut, like for example, this one here has got scores along the edges, if you can see them there. This is the top side, so I cut it face down so that the score's on the inside. So it makes it easier to fold over, rather than trying to fold it that way, and it starts to tear on the joins, on the folds I should say. I've done this the wrong way around, of course, because I need this to be facing this way. So I'm just going to put a ruler behind it and start to bend it over. Just make sure it's properly folded. I'm just going to take my ruler. You do want sort of fairly good creases in your folds. And I'm just seeing one mistake here, my score line doesn't quite go far enough, which is slightly annoying because I made a change here. But I'll have it changed before you guys see it. I'm just going to take the edge of my tweezers here and just score line, that'll do. And then fold this over. Again, take the ruler and just make sure there's a good crease there. So you'll see that's it kind of starting to take shape there. Obviously, a long way to go yet. But what we're going to do next is get the side panels again. Now these, again, I've got folds in them, so I'm going to fold them first before I stick them on. Again, I should have done that the opposite way, but hey ho. Just again, make sure there's decent crease on them. The better the crease, the better the finish actually. We'll open that out again. So this will be going on this side, like that. So I'm going to glue that on just now. So I'll take my paper towel again. What to do is don't glue the flaps yet. Wait until that you've got this part glued on and it's dry, and then glue the flaps on. Otherwise it might just not be so easy to fold it. So I'll glue around the edges. That's the important bit, is gluing around the edges. Doing it this way as well just gives it a little bit more strength. It'll also help hold the vellum paper in as well. You don't need to cover the whole card, but if you can, yes, it's better. Get the wheel there as well. You don't want any lifting, but the edges are the important bits here. That's where you would start to see it lifting. Okay, so that's that side. We'll just line this up as best we can. As you can see, I'm able to move it around ever so slightly there, so it's perfectly lined up. And that's going to fold nicely. So I'm just going to take my ruler again, just gently run over the top of it. I'll be careful on the windows, of course. Again, edges are the important bit. The way the roof and the side the sort of front and back panels go on this, they're glued on the outside, so it helps to hold it all together as well, which is quite good. I would like to say that was a deliberate design element, but actually it wasn't. It was just easier that way. Now this is an image from Design Space, which I've used in other projects. I'm sure you've seen it. Just a camper image, which I've obviously heavily adapted for this. So that's the first side done there. Let's go and do the second side. I'll need to grab it from under my hook. But before we do that, what I'm going to do is glue the door on, because it's much easier to glue this on whilst it's flat. And I've put vellum behind the door as well, just so you can't see inside, because the door remains open once the whole thing's built. It just kind of sits open. There's my line of glue there. And whether you want, whatever way you want to have it opening, I want to have it opening this way, I think. Just get that in place. Again, take my ruler. Oops. And I didn't want that to happen, of course. Get that back where it should be. As you can see, it's quite easy for me to move that around. Just open the door up again there. I think that's nicely stuck down there now. Okay. So because I've just glued that door, I'm not going to turn that over yet. I'm going to glue the brown card rather than gluing the back of that, just so I don't damage the door at all. So let's start to glue this. It'll be easier this way as well. You're not seeing the pattern. You can see where you've glued already. I'm trying to go as quickly as I can here. I'm sure it's not very exciting watching somebody gluing card together. And we're rapidly running out of glue there. Another one. You will need maybe 4 or 5 glue sticks to do this whole project, so make sure you've got plenty. You can use other glue, of course, whatever your favourite glue is. I think we're good to go there. So let's get this lined up. it's not 100% perfect, it's fine, don't worry. I did design it, and hopefully you can appreciate this, but I designed it so that it wasn't, this two flaps didn't quite join up, so there is a slight gap. It was just in case there was any differences from the sort of cutting, that you're not going to have to go in and trim these to make them fit. So that is deliberate. Again, just press that down. Right, I think the door should be dry enough now that I can turn this over, because it's going to be easier this way, I think. Just take the edge of my ruler, make sure it's all pressed down nicely. Okay, I think we're good to go there. Like I say, I'm not just going to glue these flaps quite yet. Just make sure everything's dry first. But there you can see it's kind of taken shape. What I am going to do is, you'll find two rectangular pieces that have been cut. It's part of one of the patterned ones, but it doesn't matter because it's just for the inside, whatever you want to use. And this just provides extra strength on the base, that's all it's for. So I'm going to glue these in place as well. Because obviously it's quite a big piece, just out of thin cardboard. So you just want a little bit of strength in it. The first one of these I actually made it with 1000 micron grey board, which makes it very, very strong, but it's a pain to cut. It takes ages even on the maker. I ended up cutting most of it by hand, and it's also a lot more complicated. So the first way I did it, this way should be much easier. Well, so far it is anyway. Again, I'll just press all that down. So this is now going to sit under a book, so I'll be back in 2 seconds. I didn't pause the video there, because I was only going to be 2 seconds. So we can then just start doing all the various folds that we need to do. So this will be the front panel with the window. So it's just a case of folding over the flaps like that. And again, you want them a fairly decent crease. So we'll just take the edge of the ruler down the side there. Same with the other side. I don't really have that many sort of guides as to where this bits need to go. But once you start putting it together, you'll see. And again, it depends on how you've actually started putting it together as to where everything just actually fits. But if you do it the same order that I'm going to do it in, you can't really go wrong, and you'll see. And you just kind of want to try and just curve this ever so slightly, because this curves around the front. So just kind of hold it there for a second. Be careful that the window doesn't pop out. So it's started to curve there nicely. So we'll just set that to the side. This will be the back piece. So again, exactly the same. Start to fold them over. But these round flaps, they glue onto the outside of the van, and the squarer flaps are on the inside, and they're just held there whilst you're gluing everything. And again, it helps with the strength of it. So let's give them a decent fold, good crease. As you can see, I'm using all the proper tools here, but using the edge of a ruler. I have got B's and A's marked on the front and back just to show which way round they are. Probably not necessary, because the window's an A, and then B doesn't have a window. Again, we're going to do the same with this one here, so we'll just fold all these over. Now with this one, you're only folding the ends, the long ends, not the front and back, the short ends. Again, we'll just do the same, just fold them all over with the ruler. As you can see, I'm not really being precious with this at all. Cardstock I find quite hard wearing. You need to also be prepared to have a lot of hot glue for this project, because it does use a fair bit. And I find hot glue a lot quicker at drying and grabbing it and holding it. But again, you do get high tack glue, that's quite good as well, but I think hot glue is a bit cheaper. And because this uses so much. So that's that bit, and this will curve ever so slightly when it's on the top, but I can just leave that to the side just now. I've got the two wheels. I should have, here's one I made earlier. And again, double-sided, it could be any way around that I want, but I've chosen to do it this way. Not deliberately, it's because I glued the wrong side on that first one that I did, so I've got to do this one the same. Again, just line that up, press it down with the ruler, and I'm just going to, I would normally ink this before gluing it, but just put a bit of ink around the edges there. And this next bit is the exciting bit, because this is the bit I haven't really done yet. This needed a lot of changes made to it, and it's the drawbar, the tow bar at the front. As you can see there, it does work, honestly. So we're just going to start by folding this all over. Now, obviously I've got the maker, I've got the scoring wheel. I'll be honest, I don't like the scoring stylus. I find it never, no matter what you do, it never gives a decent score, but the scoring wheel does. Excuse me. It's because the sun's shining here today. And just be careful with the little round bits. That's the jockey wheel of the drawbar. Just be careful with that, and it should all just hopefully line up, he says, which it will. So what I'm going to do, I think, is use a bit of hot glue in this one, as I burn my finger. So on this flap here, that's where you want to put a drop of hot glue. If my glue would come out, there we are, because that'll hold quickly. Again, just make sure it's lined up, and then, yes, perfect. Well, I think this is actually going to work. So these two bits here, we're going to glue them together as well. Again, we'll use the hot glue for that. Just watch your fingers. I'm the world's worst for hot gluing my fingers together. So this is the slightly untested piece, as I was saying. Now there's another two bits of wheel that do have a fold line in them, so we'll just fold them over. We'll do it that way. And these may need trimmed once you've glued them on. But I'm just going to use the scotch glue for this ones. So my hope was that this would sort of provide extra strength and stability, especially as this is sort of part of what the weight of the van sits on. Just make sure that's held in there. And we'll do the same on the other side. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I haven't found any mistakes yet, which is encouraging. Because like I say, I've not done a test cut of the revised version yet, only the first one. I think that works quite nicely. Make sure they're all lined up. So if you can see that there, hopefully. This flap here, you'll see a slot in the front of the caravan that slides into. And again, not tested that yet, so it'll be interesting to see if that works. And once inside, this flap will hopefully glue in place and hold the van up the way. That's my plan. We'll see if that works. The only other little bit that we've got is a little canopy that goes above the door. So let's just put a bit of ink around that. And we'll maybe not stick that on yet, because just the way it is, actually I'm going to put more ink on the front, because I'm going to go with the colourful side with this. But this just sits above the door like a little canopy. I'll just fold that, so it would sit kind of like that, if you can see that, but you probably didn't. Right, so next, hopefully this is dry enough. Bear with me whilst I go and grab it. I'll be honest, it's not just as dry as I would like it to be for this part, but I'm going to go with it anyway. So let's start by gluing this bottom flaps on. Then we can start constructing. Go to the edge of the table there. Make sure everything folds without anything lifting. It's very important. Again, just make sure it's properly creased. I think that'll do us. Same at this side. Good to go there. Yes. So you'll see that's how it's now starting to take shape, slowly but surely. So next bit. Actually, I'm going to leave this to dry for a little bit, so I'm going to pause the video and then come back to you just shortly. Right, I'm back again. Now be prepared for this one to be a little awkward, this part to put together. So take your back panel, so where the folds are, you want them facing down. So this one's going to be purple on the outside, and you want to glue the flap, the big flap that has the B on the opposite side actually. So I'll just apply some glue quite liberally on there, because it's not going to be very easy to press down on this part. And what you want to then do is take the van and you slide this underneath, but make sure the round flap's on the outside, and just line it up just slightly past the join there. So as you can see where the flaps would be on the outside, and just press down as best you can. Just make sure it's straight along there. Now I'll be honest, the first one of these I made, this flap went on the underside. Turns out it doesn't work that way anymore, but that's the joys of not testing things properly before doing a tutorial video. But actually I think this will be a neater finish anyway, so just make sure that's pressed down properly. Now this is the fun bit. So you want this to be curving round. Set that down there. And you want the square flaps on the inside. Now that's important because you'll see them otherwise. But you do need to make sure they're lined up. So we'll do it one side at a time. So we'll just hold that in place there, and I'll just move these out of the way. So you don't want to see any gaps around the edge here. So that's kind of where we want it. So I'm not going to use hot glue for this because I don't want it to stick too quickly in case I need to move it about. So I use this is probably where you want a high tack glue actually. But I might just borrow one of my other tricks, wooden clothes pegs, which I find quite useful for clamping cardstock. I use it quite a lot. So I'll just make sure again that that's, as you can see, this is where it does get quite fiddly. Now where this square flap is, you don't see that in the end anyway, but as long as this I think we're good to go there. So I'm just going to clamp that there. I can always move it slightly if I need to, which I do. Look at that. That'll be good to go there. just trying to ignore the fact that it popped out there. Let's just hold that in place again. And whilst we're at this side, I'm going to use the hot glue for these flaps here. You just need a tiny spot just to hold them. There's the string bits there. Just a tiny spot of glue. Because it will start oozing out. I'll get the hand in through the bottom there. So there is a hole in the bottom big enough to get your hand in. I can get my hand in certainly. So just work our way around. But I'm sure you'll agree this is easier than trying to get the flaps glued on the inside. And actually it's quite decorative anyway. This spot of glue, it doesn't need much to hold these in place. This also adds a lot of strength to the finished project as well. I'll just take that peg offline, make sure that bit's properly stuck. And what I'm going to do, just for quickness, normally I would just leave this to dry, I'm just going to put a bit of tape in there as well. You can see what I'm doing there, just to hold it whilst it dries properly, just to be on the safe side. Now I'll get these flaps out of the way. And we're going to do the same at this side. And just make sure we get this lined up nicely. I mean, what we could do actually, let's try it this way. We glue one of the flaps in, that might be easier. So let's just glue this one. Spot the glue there. That might just help hold it. Yeah, I should have done that the first time. Let's hold that there whilst we glue this one in. I'll be honest, there isn't much margin for error in this. It is fairly tight. Now this one I think I might manage to, no, I'm not going to risk using hot glue. I give up. So let's just glue the flap of this one as well. I'll just put my peg in there again, just while that dries, whilst we glue the rest of the flaps here. Amazingly, none of the glue spurted out. I usually have one of these at least that's got excessive glue. Okay, now I'm going to put a bit of tape on this side as well, again, just for quickness. You can do this anyway, of course, but make sure that holds. You don't see the inside anyway. So that's the back piece on. You'll see that starting to take shape very nicely now. So front next, which is the bit with the window in it. So exactly the same. And before we do anything, I'm just going to check which way around this is going to be happier going. But I think the flap will be happier on the inside as well. Yes, definitely. There is a bit of margin of error in the front and the back pieces anyway, because the roof sits over the top of them, so it doesn't actually join anywhere as such. So again, we're going to glue on top of the flap. Plenty of glue. And exactly the same, we're just going to line that up. Got glue strings there, which is annoying. So we'll just line that up, make sure it's right in the centre. It's right in there. Let's move the flaps out of the way. Unfold them slightly. And let's do the same with this one. Let's start with the flaps. Let's do the first one. And that one there, I think. Just glue the flap of that one. As you can see, I don't really work in a very tidy space. I do tidy up now and again. They're properly stuck there, that's nice. So actually, let's just do these flaps here on this side as well. Lined up, because I think the lesson there is start with the little round bits before you do that square ones at the top. It's actually a lot easier. Actually, the first one I didn't have these little square flaps. This bit just kind of flopped in the air, really. Oops. So I really wasn't sure how that was going to work. The idea was that it would help hold this in place whilst you glued the little round flaps down, but obviously that's not the case. Right, so we can now just hold these in place. So I wonder if we just use hot glue for these ones then. That way they'll be fine. Push that down gently. Okay, so we can see it's really taking shape now. So before we do anything else, let's go and stick the wheels on, which I'm actually just going to hot glue on, and that way they'll be sort of raised off the surface slightly. So I'm not going to push them down properly. It'll also help give it strength. So that's what it sits on. Make sure we get it all. That'll do. Another one. Because we want it sitting on the wheels whilst we're working on the roof. Now you find that wheels are fairly sturdy now, which is good. We're not going to glue the drawbar on yet, but that will just fit in there perfectly. So that plan did work. That's great. But we'll come back to that. So for the roof now, it doesn't matter what way round this goes. It's the same either way. But what you're kind of wanting to do is, if this works, because again I had to change the measurement of this one. Oh, it works perfectly. It'll just make it look like these circles, half circles, go all the way around as almost one piece. And I have actually measured it properly, and it does do that. So first one, you want to kind of glue just where it needs to be, and then the other one would go at the other side. So I want to do side at a time, and this just forms like a canopy over the window, if you can see that there. So let's just start that. And I think I might actually just put some glue on the front here. Again, that might just help give it some strength. So let's set that in place ready for gluing. Make sure they're lined up. I'm just going to put a spot of glue on the first one. Press that in place. So wherever the first one is glued, you want to make sure it's lined up on the other side. Oops. Again, spot the glue. Spot on. And as you can see, it just forms a little canopy at the back as well. So make sure everything's on the outside. And what we'll do, we're going to glue, just make sure that's, yeah, so let's put a dab of glue on the middle one here, just so it starts to hold at least. So I'll accidentally let go of the damn thing. Like I say, it is slightly fiddly. But once you've made 2 or 3 of them, you'll be fine. Just lift the flaps up there. So let's start just gluing them down, I think. I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can. Stringy glue, doors open again there. So let's just work our way around. What I'll do before I just commit to the glue in the back bit is just pop some of the scotch glue on here. That'll just help strengthen everything, as I said. The end flap. Actually, now that I've glued it, it doesn't just perfectly line up, but you know what, nobody's going to notice. I will, and you probably will when you made it. So it does mean there's actually a slight margin of error when you come to do the roof. Now this side, by right, should be easier. Once I get that one out of there, that's me just burnt my finger again. Well done. I'm actually going to try and just dab some hot glue under there. Help this bit stick down. It was starting to balloon in the middle there, which I didn't like. But I think we're good now. Lots of stringy glue there. You'll be picking it off for ages. But if anyone knows a tip for stopping hot glue going stringy, please let me know, because it's really annoying. And glue the end one on. Everything seems to be lining up very nicely, which is great. Slightly impatient there and doing 2 flaps at a time, but should be alright. Perfect. Oh, that's my fingers again. And again, I'm just going to try and just squeeze a little bit of hot glue underneath. And just use my ruler just to hold that flat, just to stop it ballooning. Perfect. Right, so you can definitely see it's now taken shape. Whether you like the colours I've chosen, possibly not. Am I worried? No. So it's now a case of, last bit, gluing the drawbar on, or the tow bar, whatever you want to call it. Once I try and get rid of all this, honestly, stringy glue. So this one we're going to use hot glue to glue this on. So obviously make sure the little wheel is on the underside. That just slides in there. Just make sure it's centered. Just make sure it fits, which it does. So let's put some glue here on the top. You want to just push that up and glue on the inside. I wouldn't use hot glue for this bit. Let's just pop that in again. Now I've not put any glue . I'm just going to put some hot glue on the sort of the legs here. Hopefully should dry fairly quickly there. I'm just going to get my hand in and do my best to get this to stick. Not a plain ball. I think we got it now. I think we're done. So just check over to make sure there's nothing that we haven't glued, and I think that's us. Grab my camera there. If you can see that there. Light's probably not the best, is it? So it measures, what does that measure? 10 inches, 20 odd centimetres by 6.5 inches, 14 centimetres. 6 inches maybe high. That's it. Thank you.